It's now my pleasure and my privilege to introduce a young man that you've already heard a lot about, and he's someone who I admire very much for his courage and his compassion. Josh Harp is a junior at Montgomery High School in Santa Rosa and in his second year of summer search. Here's Josh.
Yeah. All right. As a child, my father always told me that if I work hard at achieving something, that success would be my reward in life. All right. Thank you. But there were also a lot of things growing up that made me feel like no matter how hard I worked, I would not achieve this success. The most important thing to me growing up was my family. I started out living with my mom. However, her mental condition of being schizophrenic prevented me from ever actually being able to get close to her and getting to know her. However, one thing I will always know about her is that she loves me and my sister with all her heart, and despite her mental condition, she does her best to her abilities to protect us. When I was 5, I moved to live with my dad. For most of my life, we lived on a street full of low-income, beat-up apartments. I have 6 sisters and 1 brother, but my siblings would come and go. We were on welfare, and my dad didn't have stable work. When food stamps ran out, we wouldn't have much food unless my dad hustled for it. We had basic luxuries such as electricity. We had TV most of the time. Sometimes the hot water would be turned off, but every month it would seem like we'd be missing something. Even though we were struggling, however, my dad always found a way to get stuff done. He would work months and months in advance to make sure I had that one birthday present that I wanted or Christmas present. And in fact, he's here today. Dad, can you please stand? Thank you for everything you have done. In the apartments, all of us kids came from similar backgrounds. We all had issues with our families, and we were all just a little angry. I didn't understand why we were poor and why other kids had more than us. They had pets, a backyard, the new game systems, a basketball hoop. We felt like we were at a disadvantage because we were poor and ghetto. I felt we were different than kids with more money than us. Now, however, I understand that the kids with more money than us didn't choose their lifestyle just as much as I didn't choose mine. In elementary school, I was a straight-A student and hardly ever found myself in trouble at home or in school. As I grew older, however, the bad influences that constantly surrounded me in the neighborhoods I grew up in began pulling me in, especially when my older sister began bringing around her gangbanger friends when I was only 10. I looked at her friends as the cool kids with their gangster swagger, their nice clothes, and the respect they seemed to have from everyone. To me, they represented the lifestyle of being successful, so I aspired to be like them, and I began getting into trouble with the other kids on my street. We would fight, run around breaking windows. We would just be doing what bad kids do. When middle school came around, I began getting involved with gangbangers at my school. As a result, I got into a lot of fights, both inside and out of school, every week. I began smoking pot and drinking alcohol by age 13, and I found myself constantly in trouble either with school, my dad, or with the law sometimes. I'd begun living the stereotypical lifestyle of a poor ghetto kid that you see in the movies and TV shows that we watch. I was going down the wrong path in life, the path of a criminal, and I felt that traveling down this path, I was either going to end up dead or in jail. I continued living this lifestyle until around the middle of my freshman year, when someone who I'd looked up to in the gang, who everybody knew and trusted, supposedly did something that angered the rest of the gang, and they punished him by cutting him open, and they'd never even really confirmed the truth. This made me stop and ask myself if I really wanted to be a part of something like this. I once thought there was unconditional loyalty within the gang, like it was a family in a way. However, after seeing this, I realized I was wrong and no longer wanted to be part of something with such harsh consequences and so little loyalty. I wasn't at the point of no return in the gang, so I decided to take the opportunity to get out while I still could. Entering my sophomore year in high school, In some ways, my life became a lot easier not in a gang. My school was mostly Sueños, the rival gang, so as a result of me quitting, they tended to mess with me a lot less, and they quit jumping me in the mornings at school, so I thought that was a plus. I also joined the wrestling team at school and found it was a good sport for me to play because it put me up against people my size rather than 6-foot-tall basketball players or 200-pound football players, so that was a plus as well. My grades, which had been straight D's and F's, improved to C's, B's, and even a couple of A's. No matter how good I was doing, however, the shadow of my past always seemed to follow me. People continued to try to fight me in school and in the streets. When I would refuse, they would push me around and call me names to try to provoke me. This was especially tough for me because I had to basically go from the mentality of not letting anybody speak badly about myself or my gang to taking all these things with a grain of salt because I was trying to stay out of trouble. I wasn't even entirely sure if I had made the right decision walking away from the friends I had in my previous lifestyle. At this point, I wasn't even sure if there was a realistic possibility of me going to college one day. Then one day in my English class, my teacher came up to my desk and dropped off a certificate congratulating me on my nomination for an international leadership program named Summer Search. I had no clue what the program was about, but I figured anything congratulating me was good, so I took it home to my dad and stepmom. They had about the same reaction as me. They didn't figure much was going to come out of it. However, once again, I've seen it as an opportunity to get out of my homeroom, so I figured I'd go to the meeting explaining what the program was about. I remember walking into the classroom and seeing my soon-to-be mentor, Ryan, standing in front of the class, and not at all realizing the effect that this homeroom would have on the rest of my life. After hearing what the program was for and about the trips that they send kids on, countrywide trips, I knew that Summer Search was a program that I could not pass up. It was an opportunity I could not pass up. I had never been out of California and had little experience out of Santa Rosa, but I've seen these kids going on countrywide trips to amazing places. However, what reached out to me even more than the trips was the opportunity I seen in Summer Search for change, a chance for me to go to college. In Summer Search, I saw hope. I remember thinking I had to handle my Summer Search interview as professionally as possible. So professional, I think it was one of the first times I took off my hat in school. Today might be the second. I remember it was tough talking about my family to people I didn't know who were asking me to talk about things that I tried not to think about and try to bottle up. It was the first time I had talked to anybody about my past who wasn't family or a really close friend. However, even though it was awkward, it felt good talking about these things, and I knew that it would pay off in the end. I was right too. The weekly conversations with my mentor Ryan became less and less awkward each time, and eventually I found that he was a person who I could actually talk to about issues I was having at home and in school. I found that he was a person that wasn't there to judge me. Others, I felt they were judging me because of the dialect I use in casual conversation, the people I hung out with, and the way I dressed. With Ryan, I didn't feel like he was judging me for that. And I thank you for that, Ryan. Can you please stand? Thank you. After my calls with my mentor, Ryan, I felt prepared to take on my first trip to Alaska with Outward Bound. But upon arriving there, I realized I had no clue what I was getting myself into. On the course, I was in a group of 12 teenagers and 2 course leaders, none of whom I've ever met before, and we were to spend the next 22 days in the wilderness of Alaska. For the first 11 days, we sea kayaked through Prince William Sound, and these were probably the 11 worst days of my life. After growing up poor, being jumped daily as a gangbanger, and playing the toughest sport your school has to offer, who would have thought Alaska would give me the 11 worst days of my life? Did though. On the course, we were all homesick, and we would all talk about home. The rest of the group talked about their 3-story houses and the state-of-the-art technology they had at their homes, while the only stories I felt I had to talk about were my previous gang, my dysfunctional family, and how little money we had. I felt like an outcast out there. About the time we made the transition from the sea kayaking to mountaineering, in the middle of the trip, I had realized that I had three options. I could quit, I can continue and hate it, or I could change. Other than gangbanging, I've never quit anything, and I figured I sure wasn't going to start now. I realized how long the second half of the trip was going to last was entirely up to me, so I began being more sociable with my group and opening up to them, and I found that they shared a lot of similarities with me. It was tough for everyone in Alaska, whether you're rich or poor. Once I realized that, it made my trip a lot better, and upon course end, I was actually sad to leave the new friends who I had made there. After sea kayaking for 50 miles and carrying a 70-pound backpack up a 5,000-foot mountain, I gained the confidence that I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. Before going on the trip, I felt that there was a chance I wouldn't get good grades, make it to college, and change my life. Even when I got on a better path, I had a sense I wouldn't make it. After completing that course, however, I realized I could. What I was able to keep with me from the trip was a new understanding of how accepting the differences between myself and another person who may not come from the same background as you not only unlocks a barrier between friendship, but it unlocks a barrier to opportunity. Since returning home, I've taken the lessons I've learned in Alaska and I apply them to my everyday life. I hang out with a much more diverse group of friends at school and haven't been in any fights. Somehow, school seems a lot easier to me after Alaska. I've also given back to Summer Search by joining the Ambassadors Program, the student leaders of Summer Search, which has opened the door for even more opportunities for me, such as traveling to San Bruno during Christmas vacation to hand out gifts and food to the poor. John should know that. And I also talked to board members such as Rodney, Lou, which have helped me build the confidence to get up here and talk to all of you tonight. I've done these things to say thank you to Summer Search for all the amazing things they've already done for me and continue to do for me. This summer, Summer Search has once again given me an opportunity to take a trip. This time, it is going to be to Choate Rosemary Hall in Connecticut to study documentary filmmaking, which I plan to study in a year and a half when I go to college. Growing up, I thought people are usually a product of how they are raised, but after being a part of Summer Search, I see that even if you were raised a certain way, there is always an opportunity for change. I know that I'm no longer the poor ghetto kid that has no opportunity. I'm a college-bound student who is going to be allowed to choose what I want to study when I get there, and nothing will stop me from reaching my goal. I'm no longer on the outside looking in. I'm living it. So thank all of you for listening to me tonight.